I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Q&A. Tom, would you like to make an announcement?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank, we have some new Patreons that have just joined us, so I'll be shooting you guys an email. A thank you and a welcome aboard. We really appreciate it. And if you want to support us, you can do so for as little as $1 a month. And if you're on YouTube, we have a link in the description. Just click on that and follow your nose. But also, if you have questions, shoot us an email. questions@creekdevil.com. The only bad question is the one that you don't ask. So shoot us anything you like. And if you like the show, let us know. Click the like and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. That said,
we can really use the help, folks, by clicking the like and subscribe. It helps grow the show. YouTube looks for that. So let me mention too, we're always looking for witnesses to come on the show to share your experiences. It helps other people out there who may never, come forward. Lots and lots of people. I get emails from people all the time who don't want to talk about what they've seen or experienced, but for those out there who are willing to talk, it really does help those people. I can't tell you how many times people have said, I'm so glad that so-and-so came on the show because my experience was so much like theirs and it really helped me work through the situation. So if you contact us to come on the show, we'd really appreciate that, of course. We pre-record, and that way you have control over the editing. So if there's something that you don't want on there, or maybe something to add, we can do all that before the show gets put together and posted. So having said that, Tom, before you start with your questions, there's one that I saw in the comments that was for Forrest. And it sort of comes from episode 20, Campfire Talk. I believe it was. Anyway, I could be wrong about that, but the question was, it was because we were talking about UFOs and all that. So this question essentially said, well, because Forrest is a member of MUFON, do you have anything to say about a connection between Bigfoot and UFOs?
I don't think that Bigfoot come from UFOs. When we've had people talk about Bigfoot and them seeing UFOs in the close proximity to Bigfoot, I could imagine that whatever is operating those craft, whether they be little green men from wherever or something from another dimension, I don't know what they are. But I think that it would not be unforeseeable that they possibly could have an interest in Bigfoot just the same as we do, and have a fascination with them. Now, we've had some people say, oh, I saw a Bigfoot come out of a UFO. Well, I didn't see it, so I can't say whether that's the truth or not the truth, or it's just a story that somebody decided to make up. None of us can because we weren't there. But I don't know. Maybe they picked one up to do some experimentation on. I don't know.
I think the question was more.
I don't think that they're UFO creations. If that's what if they're getting at. No.
I think,
and I don't think they're from another dimension either.
I think the question was more geared towards, being a member of MUFON. Have you seen anything where, people reported that, or that maybe that's a position that MUFON may have, that there's a connection between the creatures and UFOs?
Oh, I don't think MUFON has any type of stand on whether on Bigfoot. I've never seen anything like that out there. And I do say that I would go out there, and I just haven't done it, and see if there's anybody talking about Bigfoot. But I've never heard any MUFON members make any comments about Bigfoot. No.
Okay, I think that
I want to jump in
hopefully
here real.
answered that question.
I just want to jump in real quick and say it's still a legitimate question.
Oh, sure.
If you have that kind of a question, absolutely shoot it our way. And it's interesting. It would be, and if Forrest, if you're a member of MUFON and you have access, I'm assuming they have like an internal knowledge base for maybe one for members only. Maybe go in there and do a search sometime for Bigfoot and see if there's, anything. Because MUFON is one of those organizations that I consider to be very credible.
And that's why I brought it up. I saw the question. I thought, oh, that's an interesting question, and maybe Forrest can answer that.
Well, I used to peruse their website out there just out of curiosity, but then after I had my little experience up in British Columbia, that's when I actually decided, you know what, I'm going to join this organization. You do have to pay dues and to get into it. So anyway, I think that what might be interesting on my part is that I just need to go out there and maybe pose the question to the general, group and see what somebody might come back and say.
I think you should. I really do. Yeah, that's a great idea. I think they're very respectful, even if it's a question that, they don't know the answer or they think it's, not likely. I have a lot of high regard for MUFON.
All right, Tom. Well, what do we have in the questions?
I've seen some crazy stuff out there, and nobody's ever made any unseemly remarks or anything.
Right. All right. So we have one of our listeners says, greetings to all of us, Will, Tom, Forrest, Chuck, TW, Joe, everybody. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. Have there been any sightings of wood boogers prior to or during the U.S. Civil War, with the expansions of plantations in the South and later the movement of large groups of troops into dense areas of forests and swamps? Any sightings? Did the sightings increase? So I want to just throw my 2 cents in before I get a comment from the team. There, I don't know about specifically to that area, but yeah, the Bigfoot sightings go way back in history, predating, the arrival of European settlers. So,
well, they've
been around a long time.
I can hint something more specific on that. Going back to Saturday's show, Bigfoot and the Army Officer, he mentioned very specific in there things that he read in the documents that they ended up destroying, that the Army did record instances of encounters with these creatures during the Civil War.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, there were
think about it. They didn't have
lots of nuggets in what he said if you listen carefully.
Yeah, and the Bigfoot term didn't exist back then, so they would be, there's all sorts of interesting names, the grassmen and wildmen and I don't know what else.
He even gave a number of those terms that were in the reports. And I don't remember. I should have jotted them down when I listened to it earlier. But he did. He listed probably half a dozen or more names, and he said the list went on and on.
That brings up an interesting question, and I think I probably know the answer to it. But the Army kept records even back Civil War and pre-Civil War. They kept meticulous records. And I'm assuming those records are still around somewhere in the archives. Well, I would imagine the Army has.
He said they destroyed. He said they destroyed a lot of those. He said they moved. And I'm trying to remember exactly the number. He said there were 16 semi-loads of paper documents that they moved, and 3 of the trailer loads were these unusual ones. And out of those, he looked at around 1,100 folders, and most of those were destroyed and no longer kept. So, if anybody was trying to do a search, those records probably don't exist anymore because they got rid of them.
Well, were those specific records that were just Bigfoot or anomalous stuff? I'm just thinking in terms of general records, not necessarily Bigfoot related, but just
you're going to have
mundane stuff.
Yeah, you're going to have mundane stuff. That's probably in the National Archives, but you wouldn't find these kind of things in those files. These were separated out.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they were more modern times. I'm just wondering if there might be any nuggets. I'm grasping at straws.
You would have to really know what to look for, and if they would let them out, because as we know, they keep a tight rein on that stuff. And we talked about that in this past campfire talk.
Well, what we really need is a historian who might be a retired Army officer who would know how to dig this stuff. If only we knew somebody like that.
You're not talking about Alan, are you?
There you go. Absolutely.
Well, Alan,
if you're listening.
Alan's already looking for some stuff too, so.
He is, yeah.
And he's got a line on some pretty interesting.
Well, how would that stuff be cross-referenced?
Well, that's a good question. But there again,
I'm just wondering how they footnote that stuff.
And there again, many of those records are probably not where the general public could get to them. Like
not that even want the general public to get to it.
Like our retired Army officer said, he said many of those documents were destroyed. He said there were some that they hung on to for a time, so they weren't going to be there indefinitely. But there was a specific reason they were hanging on to them for a certain time.
That was my next question. What was the criteria? Why would they hold on to those and not some of the other ones?
It had to do with locations, he said.
Okay.
All right. What else do we have in the way of questions? Since our time is limited on this show.
Yeah, well, it is. All right. This is for Will. Says, I'm writing you tonight, 2 a.m., because I cannot believe that I heard what I heard yet again. A golden opportunity to save a woman's life, and very possibly to end this Sasquatch mystery once and for all wrapped into one desperate plea. Yet nobody is helping her. What's going on here?
Yes, we are helping Carol.
I think, that's what I thought. He was talking about Carol. Absolutely. So there we go. Yeah, we, if anybody gets a hold of us, and they have in the past, we've had quite a few people, well, Forrest is one of them, that are having problems with these things, and we do help them.
Yes, I can verify that. And I've spoken to Carol, and she will attest to that as well.
Yes. So, and we've had other encounters. We've had a gentleman that had some problems here in Oregon, on the Oregon coast, and we sent somebody out there to help him out. I mean, he was having some serious problems with these things. So, and the guy helping him out ended up, remember that, Will? He had some problems.
So we actually, Adam is there working with Carol. So we have that situation in hand. So for anybody that's concerned, it's okay. We have things under control there.
Yeah, absolutely.
David is still here, right?
I'm here.
Oh, yeah, because David's been sending her things too. So we have a number of people involved helping Carol out.
And we do, and we have, I would say, really the kind of the thrust of this show in a lot of ways is our concern for public safety. So it's a fascinating topic. We're interested in it, but I would say priority-wise, people's safety is number one.
Number one, absolutely. So that goes along with what I mentioned in the beginning. That's, if people come on the show, on the Saturday show, and talk about their experiences, number one, that really helps other people out there who, for whatever reason, won't talk. And it all kind of wraps around public safety. So if those people hear other people talking and they do contact us but don't want to come on the show, we can give them advice that will help them, because it's worked. The things we've told people have worked in every case.
Well, and Will, that also underscores that the questions, some people are a little reluctant maybe to shoot a question because they're,
right,
for whatever reason. And you find almost without exception that the question that you have is the same question that, especially in a forum as large as this one, you have dozens, if not hundreds of other people with the same question. So ask away, and you're going to find yourself in good company.
Yep, that's absolutely correct.
All right. Brian wants to know, he said, I heard there are giants in Canada and Alaska. Where would these giants hide, and are they in the U.S.? That's a great question.
Well, Forrest, you had a little experience with that, didn't you? Being in Alaska, as far as where would something large like that hide? Now, we're not talking 100-foot tall giants.
No, we're talking 25, 30-foot guys. Yes, my husband was on a hunting trip, and he had heard, this was, secondhand information. They were all sitting around the campfire, kind of like what we do sometimes, and just, shooting the bull. And somebody brought up the subject, and I don't know how they got onto it, but guys, guys being guys. And they actually had one of the big game, and he's actually a very well-known big game hunter up in Alaska, and he goes up in the Wrangles, and that's where they find all these monster big sheep and mountain goats up there that are, really, absolutely superb trophy animals, if you're into that, trophy hunting. And anyway, my husband was on this hunting trip, and they were all talking about this, that this guy had actually reported seeing one of these giants. He was on one crest of one ridge, and this thing was going up the side of another mountain across from him, and I think he estimated it between 20 and 25 feet tall. And the strange thing about it was that it had tusks on it coming out of the lower jaw.
The tusk giants,
and my husband told me when he got home that really that was the last time he wanted to go hunting out in Alaska. That he could handle the grizzly bears and all the other, but he was like trying to figure out what in the world could he possibly carry that would bring down such as that if he was to be attacked by it. And, I wouldn't want to be out there. And you guys have been told that they're out there. So, that is so bizarre. And we've heard about the Kandahar giant, and there've been plenty of people in the military that have verified that was a true story. So,
and what Mr. Black said too, and as for part of that question, how far south do they go? Primarily, they're in Alaska and in northern Canada, but he said there were times periodically when they could venture down south far enough, or as far as Oklahoma, and then they would go back north. But I don't think there's been any kind of sightings for a long time, south of the U.S. Canadian border.
So as long as it's up there with Chuck, I'm happy.
A lot of the details in that encounter for us are ones that we've heard as well. It's the same. So again, you get these repeating patterns. Just out of curiosity, if you're okay with it, what did your husband do? What was his background?
What did my husband do?
Yeah.
He was in the Air Force. And,
wasn't he a lieutenant colonel?
No, he was not a lieutenant colonel. He was an E8, but he he studied what he was doing at last was he was studying. He reported on crashes and such. He was one of the guys that they go to that investigates when they have a plane go down and crashes, and he would investigate it and find a cause.
So he's not only credible, but he's somebody who is very detail oriented and sifts through all the stuff to get the details. And he's wondering what could he use possibly for one of these things. I'd say a light anti-tank weapon would be my first choice.
Well, I just thought it was kind of comical when he came back and he just said, I just don't really feel like I feel comfortable going out in the woods anymore. And I'm like, well, it's up to you.
Well, Tom,
hunting's never been my thing. I don't like killing things. So, I was like, that was his thing. So, and after that, he just lost complete interest in it. Seriously.
And Tom, you remember we talked to a friend in Alaska who said that he got information from a local pilot up there who saw one of these things and flew around it several times and then ended up selling his plane and leaving Alaska permanently.
Well, and we passed that information on to Mr. Black, and what was the first question he asked was about the tusks.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy did have this 22-foot creature or whatever did have tusks.
And one thing to remember,
so they're not Bigfoot.
They're not Bigfoot.
There are no known hominins in our record that have tusks.
No, this is something very different. It's not a Bigfoot-like creature. It's not covered with hair and all that stuff. It's something very different, and apparently not a lot of them. All right, Tom, let's see what else we have. We've got about 9 minutes left.
Okay. Let's go through here. So we have a person here who we're going to get back in touch with, but they had an encounter in June of last year. So we'll be getting a hold of you, and said it scared his daughter. Well, isn't that interesting? That's always the case with real encounters. We haven't talked to any credible witnesses who've had an encounter with these things and came back and said it was just a wonderful, heartwarming experience.
It's
more
funny.
like a heart-stopping experience.
There's people out there that make those claims, but not one of them has volunteered to come on the show and talk to us.
Right. No, they haven't. Okay. So this person wants to know habitat. Do the creatures, are they able to, for example, if you had some that lived in Washington and that was their normal habitat, and you've got a large river like the Columbia, could they move south into Oregon, and would that prevent them? Would the river prevent them from getting to Oregon?
They traverse that area all the time. I know of at least 2 different places where they do it.
Okay, so that's not an obstacle for these creatures.
Not at all.
No, they can swim pretty good.
Yep, that's true.
Do we have any encounters of people that have seen them in the water? Or witnesses who've seen them in the water?
What's that?
I said there have been reports up there of people seeing them in the water.
Oh yeah, I've talked to locals up there.
When they swim, they don't swim like they don't swim like us. They more or less dog paddle.
If it works, it works, right?
That's it.
Yeah, whatever gets you across.
Okay, so that's a good question actually, and water's not an obstacle, even something as big as the Columbia.
And even going back to John Green's books, he noted a number of cases where people saw him in the water.
Well, we do have a couple of them where they were in not rivers, but lakes or ponds. And I think there was one where two guys were in a boat. I don't remember if it attacked the boat or the guys just freaked out because they saw this thing jump in the water when they were in the water in a boat.
Well, I'm going to interject something here too, guys. You know, here's the peculiarity about this. Your great apes, such as gorillas, chimpanzees, gibbons, your orangutans, they don't particularly care for water. They will, in fact, orangutans avoid it at all costs. They had one in the zoo that fell in, and the zoo people had to rush in because it was floundering in the water and about to drown. The great apes don't like water. They don't like to swim. Now, your macaques, you can, some of the macaques, let me clarify that your stump-tail macaques don't like water, but your long-tails and pigtails, you'll see them jumping in the water, and they swim. Japanese macaques during the winter soak in the hot springs and such. They love water, and they will swim. They swim in a dog paddle style. But you won't see chimpanzees out there jumping in water, and if they do, they're usually pet chimpanzees that have learned this behavior from humans.
Well, you know, that's an interesting point because real close to where I live is something called the Wildlife Safari. And I've been there, and it's a real fun place to go. It's they have howler monkeys, and I just love watching those. But they're basically on an island, no fences, no enclosure, except they have a huge moat that surrounds this thing. And I asked one of the rangers there, and they said, yeah, they will not go in the water. That's a natural barrier for them. So we can include howler monkeys in that.
All right, Tom, we got a few minutes left. We got anything else, or?
One last question, and that is, this person lives in the state of Washington. This is John, and he wants to know if there have been any sightings around the Mount St. Helens area. And I think this is a rhetorical question. I'm going to throw this one to you, Will.
Well, there have been lots and lots of sightings around Mount St. Helens. So, I mean, in terms of, you could go all up and down the coast. Just about any region you want to pick, there's sightings. It's not one or two here and there. It's all over the place, and in places you wouldn't consider.
Well, what about there's an area between Mount Adams and St. Helens? What do you call that?
Actually, that's called the Dark Divide. That area.
Why? How did it get that name? What did it have to do with these creatures, or is it just because it's?
Geez, I'm trying to think why they named it that. It's not. I don't think it's actually even like on a map. It's. I'm trying to see if there's any.
Because I've heard it referred to. A lot of people are familiar with that, and they use that term, the Dark Divide.
Well, let's see.
Now there is an Ape Canyon up there, and that's actually on maps. It's called Ape Canyon.
Oh yeah, no, that was named after the 1924 miners' attack, because their mine was near the head of that, up on the plains of Abraham. Milo and I hiked in there. Yeah, I was looking at it. It doesn't really say why it was called that, but yeah, that's something we'll have to look up. A friend of mine wrote a book about that area, and I think in there he probably named or says why they call it that, but off the top of my head, I don't know without looking it up.
Well,
I got something here. Is the Dark Divide is the largest roadless area in western Washington. Does that help anything?
Wait, what did you say?
Mount St. Helens and Mount Adams in the southern Cascade Mountains of Washington, and two remote valleys of the Lewis River drainage are 500-year-old trees. Not really much to go on there.
No, it's I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's officially called that. You don't really see it on maps, so that's kind of that.
But Will, you've explored that area though, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I know the area very well.
And have you seen any sign footprints or?
Oh yeah,
howls or anything?
You
okay.
bet. In fact, we got a recording of screams from someone we know that's in an official position. We won't say what or say who this person is, but they didn't record it, but got it from somebody camping up in that area. And I think this was just 3 years ago, I believe.
Okay, so fairly recent. Then.
But we used to, in fact, that's where I had my second sighting, was in that, not quite that far north, but in that same general region.
And that was the big gray one, right?
Right. That was in southern Skamania County, but if you go farther north in the northern part of Skamania County, that's the area we're talking about.
Okay. And again, now I haven't been there, but I can imagine, because I've done a lot of exploring in western Cascades here in Oregon, and I suspect that that's similar. It's thickly wooded.
Oh yeah,
brushy stuff, and the old growth.
I got some. It said it was named after a prospector called John Dark.
Oh, okay. You know, they say that area is roadless. That's not true. There's old logging roads throughout that area.
Yeah. The Dark Divide is largely composed of black basalt features such as a 5,230-foot mountain called Dark Mountain, Dark Creek, Dark Meadows, actually named for John Dark, a 19th century gold prospector and speculator. There you go.
See, now that's what...
Well, I wish he was around.
That's what the miners were doing that were attacked in 1924. They were gold prospectors. They actually had a gold claim up on the eastern side of Mount St. Helens, and it was near what's today the head of what's today Ape Canyon. And Ape Canyon was named such after their incident, and that's where they were. In fact, Milo and
they antagonized the creatures.
Milo and I camped there in 1976 near that... near the head of Ape Canyon.
Yeah, we did.
That's another whole discussion.
Yeah, I ain't got time for that.
All right, well, we're just about out of time, guys. Any final thoughts, comments?
One final comment, and that's to all of our listeners out there. Thank you for your questions. Keep them coming. We have a lot more that we're going to dig into next week. But keep them coming. We really appreciate it. And
we actually need them.
We do. We need them because the Q&A, again, that is your show, folks. So this is, we're handing it off to you guys to ask us anything you want about Bigfoot, and there are no bad questions.
Tom, where do they
Now, how do you get
those?
hold of us? They send them to questions@creekdevil.com. Email us, questions@creekdevil.com.
Milo's going to help out with the Q&A too. So, Milo, do you have an email you want to give out if people want to contact you?
I don't have that. I got it, but I don't have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll. Yeah, stuff's not going right, but
we'll get it. We'll get it next time.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get it next time. David, how about you?
All...
Any final thoughts or comments?
Just to reassure people that are worried about anyone who comes on the show needing help. If somebody comes on the show with an encounter, we're going to know if they need help, and if they do, we will help them.
All right, good point. Forrest, how about you?
No, we have some good questions as usual, and just keep them coming.
All right. Well, thanks thanks everyone for the questions, and join us next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning, @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.